On today's episode, Mike and Ryan do a little field research in the Stone Brewing and see why their IPAs are so legendary. Cheers. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Brewthers-In-Law, where beer is thicker than water. Join us on our journey discovering homebrewing, craft beer, and more. My name's Ryan, and with me always is Mike. How's it going, Mike?
It is going great, Ryan. I'm a little chilly down here, but
It's
great
great.
to
Welcome
be...
to Michigan.
Yes, I know.
It is
turns
January
out
in
Michigan suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're doing this. I'm really stoked for this episode, and excited to be here.
I am
recording
also
again.
very excited. This is probably one of my favorite breweries out, especially on the west side of the country. As far as I'm aware, they only do IPAs, which I love. So I wouldn't mind finding if they did something else, but IPA is good.
More on that later.
All right. So Mike and I are both amateur home brewers excited about beer and home brewing. On Brewthers-In-Law, we aren't looking to act as authorities, but to share our experiences with you, the good, the bad, and the really ugly sometimes. And we hope that you will share with us as well, so we can all learn and grow and enjoy this wonderful hobby together. Mike, before we go into the first sip, I got two listener feedbacks I want to get into.
Beautiful. I'm glad that you're doing this segment because you actually remember to make time for listener feedback.
I know, right? So
try and skip it.
The first one, and this is to our wonderful friend Celeste. She asked us
from Celeste.
From Celeste. Okay. Sorry, from Celeste. She asked us a peculiar question. I want to see what you think. Do you think pairing? Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on, I gotta find it. She's asked actually a couple questions. Okay, here it is. So, as someone who doesn't drink beer as much and who likes sweet drinks, what are some ingredients I should look for in a beer? And what can brewers add to make a beer closer to a cocktail, if possible?
Closer to a cocktail.
A cocktail,
Very
yeah, I know.
Interesting. Do you want to take first stab, or do you want me to?
I mean, I can honestly say most of my beers probably fit in her categories because I put in that fruity cocktail-y thing in there. So whether it's cucumber or elderberry or something like that, I add things to my beers. But probably the best one that will probably get you to at least like a gin and tonic type thing is probably lime or lemon, which there are some breweries out there that do like a kosher lager with those ingredients to kind of give it like a refreshing feel to it that's close to a gin and tonic.
Right.
The other thing I think of is just do a White Claw, but that's just a cop out.
That's not a beer. Yeah, I would. So basically, a lot of those things that you were covering were sort of like look for additions that lean into. So I've even seen beers that are heard of beers that are kind of like made to be a mock-up of like a Moscow Mule or something. So
yes, I've seen those.
You can a lot of times tell by the marketing, especially if they've added extra ingredients, that they're sort of going for that, where it's like it's not really going to taste much like beer. It's like technically beer, but it's going for this different thing. I don't know how widespread Faygo.
No, that's a straight Michigan.
That's a Michigan
thing. As someone
right?
who's been across the country, it's a straight Michigan
Faygo
thing.
is like a local is a local apparently soda pop brand in Michigan, and they do one called Rock and Rye. And yes, I tried a beer at a not a competition, but like a beer fest once that was made to look and taste like Faygo Rock and Rye soda. Actually, and it was like shockingly close.
I remember hearing this on the radio a while back. I think it might have been last year. One of our local breweries got in with Faygo and made beers that mimicked their sodas. I forgot it was I think it was a year or two ago.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I know they do some crazy flavors and everything.
Yeah. So if you're looking for something a bit more in line with normal beer, I would say if you've never tried a New England IPA, I would check those out, because those are, even though IPA, as we'll talk about, is sort of a scary term that like people associate with bitter, New England IPAs
are very juicy,
aren't very bitter, and they're kind of made to have a mouthfeel and a flavor that sort of approaches like a juice. Very fruity, kind of like a thicker, juicier, creamier mouthfeel. But they do that using only generally a lot of times only beer ingredients, and then maybe sometimes a little bit of fruit. Another thing to look for is the addition of lactose, as long as you're
Yes.
not lactose intolerant. That is basically it's a milk sugar, and the yeast can't eat it basically. So it can add sweetness to beer. It can add sugar without them eating that sugar up.
Yeah.
So that's going to add sweetness to beer. You can look for, if you can stomach darker styles, you can look for, there's like a newfangled thing called a pastry stout.
Oh yeah.
Or like
Ton
if
of
you see
those.
anything that's labeled as a pastry beer, those are made to be sweet. A lot
Mhm.
of them have some lactose in them or other things to sort of back sweeten the beer to give you more of a desserty kind of a feel. So if you're up for trying a darker beer, you could look into those too.
I think she's got some things to try out.
I think she does.
All right.
I
So
hope
the
that you
next
found that
one,
helpful.
yes. So next one is from Aaron Grubb. This is from Twitter. He asked us specifically, have we ever heard of Black Nile barley? I actually had to look this up because like we kind of went back and forth. I said, I don't know. I don't think so. It sounds like it should have a unique flavor by the name and everything. And I looked it up. It's hard to find, as far as I could tell. But like it kind of gives it a different. It was very hard to find any information about
So
it.
it's like a super dark barley.
Yeah.
Really dark barley malt. Okay. Yeah. I wonder. So there's something that Brees makes called Brees is one of like the major American maltsters,
Yeah.
probably the biggest, and they make something called Black Prince malt, and it's kind of like it's super dark. As dark as like roasted barley or something you would use in a beer like Guinness, but it's made to be like really, really light on those roasty flavors. So like you can basically achieve color adjustment, but you're not gonna like you can make the beer darker without making it too heavy or roasty. I'm curious if it's maybe something like that.
Maybe.
Like just a really kind of specialty form of a dark malt that's not as like intense.
But it does date back to like ancient Egypt. Like it was used back then. So like it's
then
been around.
Probably not.
I do remember that
what I'm talking about
around.
is fairly new technology.
Yeah.
So that's totally wrong.
So yeah, so I do remember seeing that it was used back in ancient Egypt.
Did he have to did he explain kind of why he was asking?
He was just curious. He was very curious about it. He's heard about it and he thought it intrigued and he figured he'd ask us.
It
That's
would
literally
be, I mean, it would be super cool. I'm a sucker for all of those kind of like, using Dogfish Head brewery does some weird wild ones. And I remember they made a beer that had like, the spices of tar. It's like an Israeli or, like kind of Mediterranean food kind of I think it's more Arabic. But they made a beer that had like that in it. And like this whole write-up about, like sort of ancient times and stuff. And like I forget what else was in it, but I found that I am a sucker for anything that sort of tries to channel that whole, like, this is, an ancient Egyptian recipe discovered in a pharaoh's tomb. And it's like,
that's honestly why
that kind of historical stuff is interesting, though I've never actually experimented with anything like that in my brewing.
That's honestly why I got into mead, besides it being super simple, but like it's what the gods drank up in those
on Mount Olympus.
Mount Olympus and Norse and Vikings and everything else. So that's the reason I really got into it. Yeah. So that's it for now, but let's go into our first sip because I picked this one and I'm very intrigued of what you're gonna say, and I think I know what you're gonna say. So
I bet you don't.
I honestly got two choices I think you're gonna pick. So what brewery out on the West Coast, for all you West Coast people that might listen to us, is the one you want to go to? Like, you can have, there's a ton I want to go to, but what's the one you want to go to?
Okay. I'm just, so out of curiosity, what did you think I was going to say?
I was going to say Anchor Steam.
Okay. Yeah. It's a great guess.
It is. No. My other one was Alaskan. So that was my two guesses.
Does that count as West Coast?
I mean, it's on the West Coast. It's just very north.
Yeah, okay. I guess so. So I actually, Anchor would probably be my number 2, but my answer is neither. My answer is Russian River Brewing in Santa Rosa.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in Santa Rosa. But yeah, so if basically the reason being, so they make this, a lot of really famous beers, but if you basically go on Beer Advocate, which is a beer rating site, click on Fame, which is any of their highest rated beers that have been up there for more than 10 years. Number 2 and 3 Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger, both Russian River. You go down a little bit further, number 9, Supplication, Russian River.
Wow.
Number 11, Beatification, Russian River. So like they're an extremely well-known brewery for sours and IPAs and stuff. But Pliny the Elder
Right
in
up your alley.
particular is like a super, super famous IPA. It was like impossible to find for the longest time. And it really was like, it was like a beer people would make like pilgrimages to, you know, like they would go to the brewery, you know, like if they were in the area, it was like a whole thing, like going to a Belgian monastery, you know, for a special, you know, like Belgian Abbey beer, like Westfalen 12 or something. It was like that, but American.
Okay.
Kind of like Zombie Dust used to be before they
Yeah.
started producing more. And I think this is similar. I think it's a bit easier to find now. Pliny the Elder is, because they make it more, but you can't get it anywhere near Michigan.
Of course.
They don't distribute very widely. And so, yeah, like I would love to go out to Russian River and sort of just have the experience of like, oh, I'm here to try this super special, you know, best IPA in the whole world. You know, hopefully it's not disappointing, but from what I've heard, it's not. But yeah, so that's mine. I would love to see Anchor as well. But yeah, I think sort of because of its kind of reputation as like a destination brewery, I'd pick Russian River.
Okay.
How about you?
Mine, I actually got a quick sample because I went shopping today and was able to find one.
See, now as I described, I would have brought you some Russian River, but I believe I just thoroughly described why I am unable to.
Yes. So.
Day shoots?
Day shoots. One of the only reasons.
Lil Squeezy.
It was the only one they had. So it's a gluten-free beer, actually. But it's still like their juicy IPAs that they've been doing. This fresh squeeze, I think is what it is.
Open her up. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll do it while you talk.
Yeah, go for it. So, first of all, this is going to be a venture into enemy territory because they are based in Oregon and they are about 2 or 3 hours out of Eugene. And for those who don't know me, I am not an Oregon fan. I don't like Oregon. And it's football related. It's college related. So
he's a diehard Husky man.
I am a diehard Husky fan. The reason Michigan fans hate Ohio State, same reason I don't like Oregon. So,
so you know, I for some reason thought Deschutes was in Denver.
See, I thought they were in
realize that
Washington
they were in
actually.
Oregon.
I
Yeah.
thought they were Washington or even California, but based in Oregon.
Cheers.
Cheers. They do great IPAs, the fresh squeeze and all the different versions they've done of it. They're really, really good.
They had one called Fresh Haze, I think was one of their first juicy, or like New England IPAs. Oh, this is really good. So Celeste, little squeezy juicy ale. If you're looking for something that kind of has that juicy fruity thing, give it a try. It is still a little bit hoppy. Like it's not.
I thought it was like pretty low on the hop. Thought I saw the IBUs on there pretty low.
It's 40.
Okay, that's still pretty low for an IPA.
Pretty low for an IPA.
IPA is usually 50 or higher.
It is like, this is really yummy and very fruity.
And it's gluten free apparently.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued by that.
that's interesting. I wonder what. Well, so in any event, so this is the one. Is there a particular beer that you really want to go there to try, or are you just kind of like you've loved what you had?
I love what I had,
get
and I
free
want to
flights
get.
and try them
Well,
all.
they always say getting it out of tap is always better than getting it in a can or bottle.
I would have to generally say that I find that to be true.
Yes, so I would love to get.
There are some beers I love on
fresh
tap
squeeze.
that I think aren't worth buying in a bottle or can.
Oh, agreed. No, agreed, 100%. But I know I would love to do fresh squeezed from the tap, just straight from where they make it. And like I said, I will venture into enemy territory to go to this place. And
wear your Washington jersey.
I will gladly wear my Washington jersey. As long as that football season, I think I should be good. Like it's been, and honestly, they've been whooping our butts for a while, so I can't really say much. All right.
You can't talk smack, but you can say that you don't like them.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go into this. So we said this is Stone IPA or Stone Brewing. I always say Stone IPA because I know that's all they make.
Perhaps we should have contextualized the first sip a little better, but today we're going to be talking about Stone Brewing and sampling some of their beers, and they are sort of a definitive West Coast brewery based out of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been to one of their tap rooms.
Nice. You've been to San Diego.
I was actually going to say before we get into this too much, as an extension of the first sip, we've both been to San Diego, right?
I have not. My wife has. Yeah.
Mel
She went on a work trip, and I did not go with her that time.
It's a It's an amazing place if you're a craft beer drinker. Stone is there. They have a ton of like small micro and nano breweries that we checked out. Ballast Point
Oh
is
yeah, Ballast
also
Point's
there. We checked that out also. Fantastic beers. But you know, Stone is kind of is the big kahuna there, I would argue. And I think in terms of just like beers that you can, you know, I can't think of anywhere in the US where you wouldn't be able to find Stone.
I
You know,
honestly,
most stores that have a decent beer selection will carry some of their beers.
I almost say that I almost put them on the same level as like a Sam Adams. So there's maybe a couple pegs down for being around the country like Sam Adams is, because Sam Adams does kind of consider itself still a microbrewery
Yeah,
because
or well,
they're not like Anheuser
they're
or something like that.
craft.
They're craft beer, okay.
I micro is maybe
Yes.
I don't know,
But I think like Stone is the West Coast version of that, and it's just
I could
getting
see
more and
that.
more
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't actually know how the numbers would line up, but I could kind of see that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so basically Stone is known for their IPAs and have been for a long time since they opened. And so I'm going to start before I talk about the brewery. I want to talk a little bit about IPAs because we're basically going to be doing some research into the style of IPA through the lens of one of the great IPA making breweries. We're going to be sampling their current IPA sampler and trying to figure out kind of what we can learn from their IPAs. So for starters, just a little bit of info to kind of throw at you. So most people are fairly familiar with this, but in case you're not, an IPA, India Pale Ale, is a style of ale that's characterized by fairly high bitterness and an intense hop aroma that can take, you know, hops can smell like anything from fruit to, you know, citrusy to like melony to kind of pine,
Yeah, pine.
grapefruit. Sometimes they smell sort of dank.
There are dank actually dank IPAs.
I mean, hops and pot are very close cousins.
I did not know
plants,
that.
yeah.
I kind of makes sense, but I did not know that.
But yeah, so or earthy tea like you can get all sorts of things from hops. In an IPA, those are gonna generally be the star of the show. They're
Yeah.
gonna be the most prominent factor. So India Pale Ale originated in England, but it has kind of become a defining style of American brewing these days, I would argue. It's like sort of when you think American craft beer, IPA is the first style you think of.
Yes,
I
West
would
Coast
argue.
IPAs especially.
And it's probably been the hottest craft beer style of the last decade or so. Spawned a huge variety of sub styles, regional variants. I think we may dedicate an episode in a later season to regional IPA styles.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
a
won't
whole
get into
episode
that too
itself.
much, but so there's a famous story that the IPA was born because the British started adding more hops. So hops are a preservative. And the story is that the British started adding more hops to their beer so that they could survive the trip to India during
Yes.
the colonial ale. So this is often specifically attributed to a beer called Hodgson's Pale Ale, which was the first to become widely popular in the East, hence giving it the title India Pale Ale because it was popular over there. So this is apparently, there are grains of truth, but it's kind of like an apocryphal story. There are records showing that beer was being sent to India for years before the appearance of pale ale, and also some documented pale ales that existed years before the appearance of Hodgson's. That was just the one that sort of blew up and became associated with the East. So it's like, it's just true enough to be a cool story. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but yeah, basically the story gets enough of the major points right, as the success of Hodgson's Pale Ale, along with notably, sometimes you'll hear people when they're talking about English IPA, they'll talk about Burton upon Trent, which is just an area of England that became famous for brewing this style. So they sort of collectively codified an early version of this style in England. And again, it was like the beers being made at the time, but more hops, some more hop flavor. And that, you know, regardless of what order it all happened in, that did improve the preservative qualities. So it did make it a great choice for long voyages. So if you would like to, if you're an American listener and you'd like to try one of these English style IPAs, according to the BJCP, which is an association that sort of catalogs beer styles, they actually list the Goose Island IPA as a notable example. So
Really?
Goose Island is based out of Chicago, It's fairly easy to find, at
Well, they
least
got
in the
bought out by
Midwest.
someone. They actually, I think, I don't know if it was Miller or Anheuser bought them out,
Okay.
so like they can widely distribute now,
Yeah,
or at
so
least going to.
they've got a goose as their mascot there. Yeah, they're fairly easy to find, but if you can find Goose Island IPA, that is apparently an English style IPA if you're interested.
I've seen it in stores, so I might try that one out.
Yeah, we are so like many styles, then American brewers sort of took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
And we sort of extra'd it.
Yeah,
like
that
like
sounds
we
about
do
right.
like we've done to a lot of beer styles. And so now the pale ale and IPA, I would argue, again, are more associated with American craft brewing than any other country.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
You can have good ones in other countries. They do cool variations, but like America is sort of considered the modern home of hop forward IPA style.
Well, the hops they grow here is what really helps them out. I think you're probably going to top on this, but like the Citra and the Simcoe and everything else that they grow here in the especially on the west coast of the country, in
like
Oregon and Washington and
Yakima
California,
Valley,
that's your citrus hops. That's your piney hops that
yeah.
goes going IPAs.
Yeah,
here.
you're right, and that's maybe something. So like when like British hops are associated with pleasant flavors, but very different flavors from American hops. They're going to be more herbal. Some will call it, say, like tea-like, floral. Some of them
Earthy
do
even.
have like, earthy. Excuse me, earthy is probably the biggest descriptor.
Yeah.
Some of them will have some fruit character to them too. I've heard like Challenger in particular having kind of like an orange marmalade sort of a flavor.
Okay.
I'm kind of interested in.
I'm intrigued by that.
But yeah, so yeah, like Ryan said, in America, a lot of our hops have a very sort of citrus. Some of the classics will have kind of a grapefruit sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the more modern ones that we've developed will have like a range of different fruity qualities, ranging from like citrus to tropical.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard there's one called Brew One that almost has like a coconut thing going on.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah, so it's kind of gone crazy, and I think you're definitely right that we're sort of a hop breadbasket. Our hops are very well respected around the world, and probably those flavors lend themselves to IPA really well.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever had a chance to try a British pale ale or IPA?
No, I have not.
Just to kind of compare the two. Okay, so I don't know that I have either. I may have had.
I might have. I'm gonna get that Goose Island one.
I might have had one at Dragon Mead once and just don't remember. But if I've had one, it was too early in my drinking career to really like remember what it was like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would be curious. But yeah, American IPAs. What would you say? What's your favorite IPA if you were put on the spot?
Put on the spot. Besides my own.
I mean, you can say that.
No, I do love. I prefer hazy. I love IPAs. I haven't had a bad one yet, but like I do prefer a nice hazy IPA. I will probably put me on a spot. I'm gonna stick with what we just had with the shoots. I'm gonna go with the fresh squeeze. The fresh squeeze is like it's not actually a hazy IPA. It's a regular IPA, but it's got that juiciness still.
It's amazing that they didn't put real juice in that beer, which they didn't.
No.
It's a 4-ingredient beer to my understanding, but man, it really tastes like they squeeze some.
It's
lemon.
your hops and your yeast.
Yeah. Oh, it's delicious. But,
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you? Hold on. You put me on a spot.
Well, okay. So, for me, it really depends on my mood. You know that I love Hopsecutioner.
Yes.
But that's kind of a maltier beer. Not always what I'm in the mood for. I would say I'm trying to think of like the best one I've had recently. Well, whatever. I'll just go with Hopsecutioner.
There you go.
It's always simple. It's the first one I think of.
Yes.
So yeah, so that one, it's interesting. You talked about fresh squeezed. Describe the flavor of fresh squeezed for someone who's never had it.
It's almost you still get like that beerness to it, but you get like not quite orange juice, with like super super sweet, but you get like
some kind of
like
citrus juice,
kind of like orange juice turned down just a little bit on the sugar, and it's still like it's just an amazing flavor, and that's honestly why I do love like the hazy and all those with them as well, because the New England IPAs do the same thing where they get that juiciness out of it without putting juice or orange or any other extra ingredients in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So a Hopsecutioner, I would just, so it's a little darker. Honestly, I think of it as darker than it actually is. It's actually kind of a light colored beer, but it has a prominent malty, like there's kind of like a biscuity flavor
Hmm.
that is like a nice undertone to the beer, and some like a nice caramely flavor. And then sort of layered on that is a lot of hop flavor, some citrusiness, a little bit of pine. I love beers with a little bit of that pininess in it, that sort of West Coast thing. And yeah, it's a very different beer from Fresh Squeeze, and I think that just goes to show neither of them are like a juicy IPA really, or like a hazy IPA, and it just goes to show this sort of
The
variety,
range,
that
yeah.
the range, yeah. So and I think that's a great transition point. So what I was going to say next, which is like for IPA, they're characterized most by being highly hopped and very hop
Hmm.
forward, but every rule has an exception. So pale ales and IPAs range from golden to amber in color, but there are specialty IPA styles like a red IPA, brown IPA, and even black IPA, where
Yep, I've
people
had that.
make IPAs that look like stouts that are super dark, look like a Guinness or something. So, again, and those have slightly different characters. Obviously, the darker they get, the sort of roastier the malt backbone is,
Hmm.
but you still have the hops as the star.
There's one more
Um,
actually. I remember this one. You know this one, a Belgian IPA.
Oh, Belgian IPA, great
Yes.
example. Yeah, where you sort of turn up the yeast character,
Hmm.
but you keep the hops as the star.
And the strength of that beer still.
Right, yeah. And so the malt character can range anywhere from light and out of the way. That's kind of characteristic of a West Coast.
Hmm.
Again, we'll probably do an episode on regional variants, but like Stone IPA, which we're going to try, is a very pale beer, to anything down to like, pseudo amber is considered a standard IPA.
Hmm.
And generally, but yeah, it can be anywhere like we described with Fresh Squeeze and Hopsecutioner. It can be anywhere from sort of gets out of the way and just provides a foundation to something that's actually like kind of adding flavors, where like in Hopsecutioner, you get some biscuit
Hmm.
along with the hop flavors on top of it.
Nice balance, yeah.
Um, and so generally IPAs will be both hoppier in the kind of 40 to 60 IBU range than a pale ale. Um, and a pale ale is probably hoppier than a lot of other styles like
Yeah.
lagers and stuff. And they will also be higher ABV. So an IPA, generally an American IPA, is going to be anywhere between 5.5 to 7.5%.
Okay. Sounds
But
about right.
then again, there are exceptions. You can have a session IPA or a locale IPA, as a lot of them are being called, that retain the same hop punch,
Hmm.
but they lower the IB or the ABV to like under 5%.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. The flavor's still there.
Yeah.
It's just not nearly as a punch in the face
Yeah.
with ABV sometimes.
Founders All Day IPA, Bell's Lighthearted Ale are
Yep.
two great examples out of Michigan that I think are pretty widely
And Alaskan
distributed.
actually has one. I got bought Alaskan pack and they have a light IPA.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
low IPA is
Yeah,
what
they're
they
sort of
call it.
trendy. I'm a fan because I love hop flavor, but I hate that IPAs can like get you in trouble quickly, and they can
Yes.
sort of and they can kind of weigh you down. So yeah, those are great options for that. Generally for those, you'll see slightly lower IBU, or at least on the lower end, because you have less malt for the less alcohol.
Hmm.
So you have to, if you kept like the same amount of really high IBU, it would just be super bitter. So
Yeah.
but then you can go the other way. Again, another exception to the rule, you can go an imperial, or
Oh.
sometimes called a double IPA,
Hmm.
that sort of doubles down on both the ABV and the IBU. And those can be 7.5 to 10%, and anywhere between 60 up to over 100 IBUs. And we'll actually be trying Stone Double IPA.
I saw that on the list.
Never had it. It's a double New England style IPA, I think, according to
Ooh,
them.
okay.
So I'm really curious about it. Generally, IPAs are always going to be clear unless it's a New England or a hazy, which are characterized by their haze,
Mhm.
because they just pack so many hops in that the beer just can't be clear, basically.
Yeah.
And then there are regional variations. I've heard like West Coast, East Coast, Midwest. These are not official styles. They're more just like regional variants.
Variations,
Yep.
yeah.
And again, we'll probably devote a separate field research episode to regional differences. So, Ryan, I know before we dive into Stone, and I know this is going a little long, but I think it's important just to sort of tie this back to brewing. I know I've only ever brewed one IPA. It was a Hopsecutioner clone.
Imagine that.
It came out decent. I think I would make some changes. I kind of am, to be honest, a little intimidated by like the like the balancing act that you have to do when you do an IPA? What you've brewed more of them than me. What has your experience been brewing IPAs?
Um, well, I've done a hazy and I've done that only once, and it came out honestly. I mean,
It
you
was
agree, it
delicious.
was
It was
amazing.
really good.
I do love it. Um, but the other one I've done multiple times now is the IPB or IBP. Yeah, I said it right the first time. The Impatient
IPB.
Bastard. Um, but it's actually it's one of the ones we're going to try on here, very similar to it. It's a Tangerine Peel IPA. So it's closer to a session. It's not high in IBUs. I think it's somewhere between 40 and 50. I believe it's Citra. Actually, I'll pull up my phone real quick. I believe Citra hops is one, and the other is, hold on, Cascade.
Ooh, yummy.
So Cascade goes at the beginning. That's your bittering, and then a Citra is your floral at the end. When you put it
Yeah,
in at the
the
end,
aroma.
literally at the last 10 minutes for Citra.
So, so when you think about like what are you thinking about when you're so for an IPA, you can use a lot of different malts, and a lot of times it'll depend on the style you're going to make. But specifically, the thing that's always intimidated me is figuring out kind of when and how much hops to add and which ones to pair together and stuff. So, kind of, what's your thought process when you're determining what kind of hops you want to pair together?
A lot of times the internet helps. If you look up a hop, a lot of times the sites you go to will tell you other hops that you can replace with, or hops that work well with it.
Okay,
Or with actually both of these two recipes, I kind of based them off other recipes. So the Hazy Triforce, which is the Hazy IPA, I switched up the hops just a little bit, looking at ones I can replace with, because I didn't recognize a lot of the ones that I did. I did keep a couple that they had there. Um, but with the IPB, it it's almost a clone of the founders session. Was I forgot we just said the name of it.
all day.
All day. Um, so it's and then I added tangerine peel at the end to kind of sweeten it up to kind of balance out that bitterness
Gotcha.
with the hops. So for me, honestly, I kind of copped out. I kind of copied off other recipes, so I don't
Well,
really
but
know.
I think that it brings up an important point. That's what sort of stresses me out about brewing IPAs without a lot of experience is like a lot of these hops I don't have a ton of experience with. And like
Hmm.
that Hopsecutioner clone was built from basically they list all the hops in their beer. So I
Yeah,
tried to use all of those same hops. But as a result, they use like six. So
yeah, they do use
now
that.
I brewed a decent beer, but now I couldn't tell you what any of those specific hops contribute. And I think with IPAs, you really want to make sure that you're sort of using flavors that are going to play well together.
Hmm.
So I think doing, I like what you said with the IPB, you use only two.
Yes.
Um, I would say, I think for me going forward, I'm going to try in my future IPAs to keep it to only two or three, or, at least like in the aroma and flavor and
Yes.
dry
Hmm.
hops, only maybe one or two, so that I can really start to understand what different hops taste like, so that later in my brewing career, I can do a better job of combining flavors. Cause I
Hmm.
feel like if you just go off recipes, you'll probably make good beers, but yeah, I at least have struggled to sort of glean what the hops taste like.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
I do
especially
know
for
some.
IPA
Yeah, I do
hops.
know some. Like Citra obviously has a Citra flavor, and a
Yeah.
Cascade is a similar with a little more piney to it as well. And I like you said, I kind of go with ones that I know I've seen beers have worked together and they work well together.
Oh yeah.
And even with the Hazy Triforce, the ones I replaced, I literally looked up the ones that they had in this recipe, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Let me see what it's like. And then one was related to Citra, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put Citra in because that's easier to find than trying to find another hop,
Sure.
especially now with because I think I brewed that during pandemic, so like a lot of the supplies aren't great, but like
Yeah.
you had to go with the more known brand that's going to be more out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And I think another great thing you brought up, like I've never brewed with Citra, but I do know what it tastes like. Um, because I've had a bunch of beers that are prominently hopped with Citra. And so I think that sort of transition into what we're trying to do here is to sort of use commercial examples to get an idea for what hops taste like and sort of what we can learn about developing IPA
Yeah.
recipes. And so That's sort of a good transition into talking about Stone. So few breweries in the U.S. have the reputation for IPA brewing that matches Stone out of San Diego. If you've ever seen their labels, they have like this really distinctive black and white gargoyle thing going on. It's like the
Hmm.
most metal label art in the whole brewing industry. And according to Stone, the gargoyle wards off evil brewing practices such as cutting
Ah,
corners and other
smart,
things.
smart.
So, and apparently, like one of the co-founders, Greg Koch, is sort of a rock and roller type of a guy, and I know that.
He does a lot. Actually, I remember hearing something with
Um,
doing something with Metallica or something like that with some of the branding.
yeah, yeah, and so I know this is going a little long, so I'll try and kind of get through this quickly, but I do want to sort of cover their history a little bit and just talk about why they're so
Yeah.
revered. So they were founded in 1996 by Greg Koch, Steve Wagner. The first beer they released was Stone Pale Ale.
Okay.
I've never actually had it. I've
No.
never seen it at stores. To my understanding, they've sort of revamped it and changed the recipe. They call it 2.0 now, but they are still making it.
Okay.
That was then followed by their smoked porter and their heat-seeking wheat. So they
Oh,
do
really?
make
Okay.
non-IPA beers as well. My favorite, I have had only one. It's called, I think it starts with an X, so it's a weird pronunciation, but I think it's pronounced Chocoveza, and it's a Mexican mocha stout. So like if you've ever had
Mm.
Odd Sides Mayan mocha stout is
Yes.
another
Hmm.
example where it's like basically it's a stout. This one they age in bourbon barrels, and then they add, I think, chocolate and like hot spicy pepper,
Oh, that's a
just
lot.
like a
Yeah.
Mexican mocha and,
Hmm.
and coffee.
Of course. Yes.
So yeah, so there's a lot going on, but man, it's a delicious flavor combination, really complex. So the following year, they released two major influential beers, the Stone IPA. That's been an award-winning IPA. We'll try it. It'll be the first one we try. And it's kind of been hugely influential in defining what makes the classic West Coast IPA style.
Hmm.
The other is Arrogant Bastard Ale,
Yeah.
and that's a strong ale. So I think if you wanted to sum up Stone's philosophy, you can just listen to the first couple sentences of the description. This is an aggressive beer. You probably won't like it. It's doubtful that you have the taste or sophistication to be able to appreciate an ale of this quality and depth. We would suggest you stick to safer and more familiar territory. Maybe something with a multi-million-dollar ad campaign. And then there's more, but then it ends with hated by many, loved by few.
Challenge accepted. You know what?
Yeah.
I feel like if I read that as like a college person, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to drink you and then drink. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, give me a Busch Light right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if you read a lot of their other marketing, it's sort of like that. It's this unapologetic, like, this beer's going to punch you in the face with flavor and you're going to like it, or maybe you won't, but you know what? It's a good beer.
Yes.
And if you can't appreciate it, then you suck. And I think from my past experience with Stone, we're going to see that that's reflected in the type of beers they brew. So they also started this anniversary beer tradition that they've continued every year. And there's some interesting, those are generally very high ABV, so high alcohol and very aggressively hopped. So
Hmm.
as part of that program, they released their first double IPA in 2000. And that was one of the first to ever be released by a professional brewery, the first double IPA. So then they released in 2002 that recipe combined with another one and morphed into Ruination IPA, which is another really famous Stone
Yep.
IPA.
That's one of those.
That's the first double IPA to ever be distributed nationally and year round.
Wow.
And then, then basically in 2006, they brought on Mitch Steele as the brewmaster at Stone. Before that, it was the co-founder, Steve Wagner. Mitch Steele literally wrote the book on IPA. I'm like the 1,000th person to say that, but like he literally wrote a book called IPA. You know, he's a legendary IPA maker. And in his time at Stone, he introduced their sublimely self-righteous black IPA, which again was the first nationally distributed black IPA. So
Wow.
I think first of all, one thing we can conclude is that they sort of show a history of being on the cutting edge of new styles, pushing what an IPA can be.
Yeah.
And then he was also part of if you've seen the Enjoy By IPAs,
Yes,
which
those are good.
they would have a date written on them. The whole thing was like consume fresh, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Belgian IPA, I think it's called the Cali Belgique or something. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
pronounce it. Their first session IPA, and then their delicious IPA, which we'll also
delicious.
try.
I love that one.
That's also in this set. So Mitch Steele stuck around until 2016. couldn't find who their brewmaster is now. But yeah, that's basically the history. Did I miss any of your favorite beers by them?
No, you brought up probably all the ones that I've had.
Yeah.
I love Fresh By. I love the Tangerine, which I don't think you mentioned, but we did talk about earlier.
Yeah, and that's another one that'll be part of this tasting.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think again, one of the big things that I would take sort of from this is that, you know, a lot of those are like really famous award-winning IPAs. So they're very well known, but a lot of them were also revolutionary at the time of release. So we're gonna start. I think actually, Ryan, would you want to maybe take a break and then we'll start the tasting after the break?
Let's do that.
Let's do that just for sake of time. But let's take a quick break because I'm getting thirsty from all this talking.
I know. We got to crack this open.
All right.
All right, bye. Bye, guys.
Welcome to our new podcast. Welcome to our new podcast.
This isn't working.
Agreed. I think we're going to have to do it turn by turn.
Well, now that you mention it, we are a brand new RPG video game podcast.
Our very existence hinges on turn-based gaming.
So join us on the Turn by Turn podcast, where we'll be talking about
Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Shining Force, Mother, and so many more.
It's your turn to come and join us.
Hey, this is Jordan Johnson. And I'm Max Homestead. And we're at the Top Hat Balloon Show here. Yeah, so it's a sketch comedy show and it's a complete secret to everyone. Yeah, it's a super secret. It comes out weekly, but only you can know about it. Yes, you're one of the special few who we're telling about it. Yeah, so make sure you go to YouTube, iTunes, or our website, tophatballoonshow.com. Yeah, and watch our videos and subscribe, but don't tell anyone. Well, tell some people. Maybe tell some people. Maybe a few folks. Maybe only tell, each of you only tell 20 people each. Yes. Then it'll still be small and cool, but... Yeah, but it's a secret, okay? Yeah. It's a secret. Keep that in mind. The secret Top Hat Balloon Show, okay? Goodbye.
And welcome back. So, as Mike said before the break, he is thirsty from talking. I am thirsty as well.
He's thirsty from listening.
Yes,
I'm famously long-winded, and man, I've scratched up my throat. So I think Ryan is gonna quench my parched throat, pour me a little bit of Stone IPA. Their words, not mine, but I agree. The iconic West Coast style IPA.
Yep.
So this
is on the glass.
This one clocks in at 6.9% alcohol and 71 IBU. And I guess we've said it in an earlier episode. If you're not a beer person, IBU is International Bittering Units. It's sort of a standard measure of how bitter to expect a beer to be.
Yep.
That's fairly high. That's on the high end of what
IPAs,
we would expect for an IPA. Any initial impressions on the look?
The color is I can almost say lager-like.
Yeah,
it is almost like
if you told me this was a Pilsner or like a lager, I'd believe you.
Yes, 100%. Sure. I'll let you take your first sip. I'll keep talking.
I smell some nice American citrusy, piney, kind of classic West Coast hops.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great smell. I'm assuming you're going to say great taste here. I
taste them too. Yeah. I love this IPA. Yeah. These are not beers that we've never had necessarily. We're not trying these for the first time. We're just really focusing and trying to see what we can learn about them.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is to me like one of the best, I think. The fact that it's pale, very few, just enough malt to provide a backbone. The other thing I noticed, especially in the era of New England IPA, this is bitter. This is an IPA for people who like IPAs.
Yes.
It's not an IPA for I feel like New England IPAs can be enjoyed by a lot of people. I think only IPA lovers will enjoy this beer, but they will love the crap out of it.
Celeste, don't drink this one.
Don't drink. Yeah, this one's not for you. But yeah, another thing I notice is it definitely has the citrusy thing going on. You know, the kind of classic American that almost a lot of people describe it as grapefruit, though I feel like I get some adjacent, a little bit of orange and maybe some more like lemony.
I think that's going to be your probably citra hops. Do we know what hops are even in this by chance?
So yes. So they list Citra. Oh, no. Magnum, So, okay, I think the recipe has been modernized a little bit. So
Okay.
I think that I found a clone for the original, which I think they published in a magazine when they updated it. And that was Magnum, Chinook, Centennial, and Pearl.
Okay.
So Chinook and Centennial.
Your piney and your citrus.
They're piney, citrus, definitely. And Centennial is kind of famous for that grapefruit flavor. I definitely get that. I get a lot more pine in this beer than a lot of especially modern IPAs, but I love it.
No, I do too.
I like a little bit of that in my IPAs sometimes.
This is a great winter. Honestly, for me, this is a great winter beer. I know IPA. A lot of people drink IPAs in the summer, but this is more of a winter one because
I am a winter
one.
IPA drinker.
See, okay, good. See,
Though this one's so pale, I think I could enjoy it year round. It's
the hopness of it that makes me want to make it winter because I can't chug this.
No, you wouldn't chug it. Well, it's almost 7%. That would be bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So sorry. So the modern recipe adds some others. So it's it's Magnum, Chinook, Centennial, and then all of these I think are newer. So Azaka, Calypso.
I've heard Calypso.
Motueka, which is a New Zealand hop. That was one of the ones that we used in our New Zealand Pilsner.
Okay.
Ella and Vic's Secret. A lot of those I've never used before.
I'm about to say the only one I've heard of is
I think a lot of them are fairly new, modern American hops.
Yeah.
And like I said, I know Motueka at least, and then I'm probably bastardizing that name. But
yeah. I feel like honestly, hops is like
that's a
the
New
new
Zealand
pepper is the new thing for peppers. Like people were putting peppers together, trying to make the hottest pepper.
Yeah.
And then taking that with
now,
nothing else.
Yeah,
and now people are doing the same thing with hops.
Now people are trying to make like the fruitiest hop.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
No, that's a great IPA. It, like you said, it definitely is high on the bitterness with the IBUs being in the 70 range.
I would consider it like a classic. I do think it is. You could say that the style is kind of outdated in how, it's a bit more prominently bitter than a lot of modern IPAs. They definitely have a bit more of like a balance between pine and citrus than a modern IPA. But I think it's really good, and I think it is almost for me unique again, just because it's not what people are doing now. It's kind of, they've stuck to the roots, and now there aren't many IPAs that you can get that are like this one, at least on our store shelves. On the West Coast, it's probably a bit easier to find. But
well, I mean, because most people are trying to keep with the trend, so they're doing the juicies, the hazies, and stuff like that. But like, it's nice to see people stick with the roots, like you were saying, and keep those. Like, because you had one, you had text me and our father-in-law. What was the one that you
Devil Dancer?
Yes.
Yeah. That is another. It's a maltier, but that's a big boy.
Yes, and I
very hoppy
crazy
too,
on
like
it
very
too.
hoppy, very bitter. Like it's an IPA lover's IPA.
Yes.
So you brought up the hazy trend.
Yes.
Now, to my understanding, Stone was really not one of the pushers of the hazy trend, but like everybody else, they've had to adapt and get on board.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their examples. I think any IPA brewery, probably any brewery, is making at least a couple of hazies.
Yeah.
This is their Tangerine Express Hazy IPA, an India Pale Ale with tangerine and pineapple. And they say in the description that this is made with real fruit puree.
Okay.
Not juice, not extract. Maybe a minor amount of extract, I think.
Okay.
But they use real puree. This, I think, is another great thing in the back of the bottle. We're not looking for a sweet concoction to appease the "I want my beer to taste like fruit juice" crowd. This is Stone. We like our IPAs to taste like IPAs. Big, bold, and not for kids. I just think it says something to me about kind of their. It's like they have such a unique character. They have like such their beers are descriptions, the gargoyle. They have a strong personality for a brewery. So this one I'd say definitely hazier than the last one, which was crystal clear. But I can still see my fingers, which is not true of a lot of these hazy IPAs.
No.
So it is.
I will say, well, I feel like mine's a little more hazier than yours. Maybe they had nutrients on the bottom and you didn't get as many.
Maybe you got the bottom. Yeah. So you've taken your first sip. You tell me your thoughts.
I want to ask a question first. What is the IBUs on this?
67.
I would never guess that in my life.
6.7% alcohol, 67 IBU.
I would have said 40.
Yeah,
because the juiciness,
the juiciness really comes through,
yes.
and I do agree with them. Like you get that fresh fruit flavor, it's wonderful. It is not overpowered.
No,
I have to say it tastes a little bit like it tastes like it. It doesn't not taste like fruit juice. So sorry, guys.
I mean, you get a little bit of
but-
maltiness and a nice citrusiness.
I know what they're getting at. This is not, because I have had IPAs that have turned me off by being too fruity, especially when they add real fruit. This is not that. This is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that it's not quite as hazy as a normal New England.
Well, again, I think if you probably had my half as well, you probably would have been a little hazier.
But I would still say this is more bitter than a lot of other New England IPAs I've had.
But still, like I said, I would guess somewhere in the 40 range with that. Like, because most when I have a hazy, like my hazy, I think was also in the 50, 60 range, but you couldn't tell because it was juicier.
Yeah.
This one is the same thing, and this one is even higher IBUs, and I could probably say the same thing. I would have guessed 40.
Yeah,
like a nice
I would agree.
Pale
Well,
ale.
particularly with respect to the Stone IPA, which is like unapologetically not over bitter, but bitter. It's like it's an intended part of the flavor, and here it is definitely toned down compared to that.
Like I feel like it's there, but it's like hidden from you. You don't know it's actually there.
And so here they use Centennial and Azaka again. They must like those.
Azaka here.
In addition, Citra.
Yep.
Which I definitely get. Citra's a great hop if you're looking for that punch of really, really citrus flavor, shocker. And then Sterling and Mosaic. Now I've had single hop beers made with Mosaic. That is another. Have you ever had like Founders Mosaic Promise?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So that one also very, very fruity. To me, it's a more complex fruity, and it has a bit more of like a danky thing going on. Is that your take on it too?
Yes,
or do you not?
agreed. No, agreed.
So yeah, I don't know much about Sterling and Azaka. I don't know that Sterling is a super citrusy hop. I think that's maybe used to bring a bit of balance. But I think you're looking up Azaka right now.
I am looking up Azaka. So Azaka, this says the characteristics are aromas of tropical fruits and citrus, tasting notes of spicy mango, pineapple, and tangerine and pine.
Oh,
and I definitely get
mango.
that.
I get mango.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah, and there is there's tangerine and pineapple puree in this beer. There is no mango, but I definitely get the mango.
I was hoping they have like a thing where it shows like try this hop if you can't find it, but I don't see anything. But yeah, I definitely get the mango now.
That's okay.
I'm hearing about it.
I mean, I would go ahead and say I have heard
Galaxy would probably be a close one, but
Galaxy
it doesn't have
possibly,
mango to it.
I mean, Citra will get you part of the way there, but you'd have to complement it with something
probably
else.
Galaxy actually.
Yeah, I've heard of other hops that can do the pineapple thing. Right. Anything else to say about this one?
No, it's honestly it's a phenomenal drink. Sorry for those who couldn't hear me. I was walking away for a second.
Ryan had to go get us.
I had to get the next beer. No, I think this is a great hazy IPA. I think this is like a kind of a gateway IPA for those who want to try it.
So I would say that. I would also argue that if you are like, for me, it's like if you're an IPA lover and you're not sold on the whole hazy juicy thing, this is a great gateway New England IPA.
I can agree with that.
Because I do think I think they succeeded in their mission that it still tastes like an IPA. It doesn't completely, like, to me, a well-made New England IPA can be a totally different experience from a standard IPA.
I remember the first time I actually had a New England IPA. I was at a wedding, and the bride and groom came by the table and had a picture of it, and poured us all some to try. And looking at it, I would have thought orange juice, and tasting it, I would have thought orange juice. But it was, I forget where it was from, but it was, they said it was a New England IPA. I'd never heard of the style before at that point in time.
Yeah. All right. So next we have a special release. Is this one of the ones that I think I attributed to Mitch Steele?
I think so. Exotic Destinations.
Yeah, the Exotic Destinations. I'm
intrigued by this one.
Oh, no, it's the Delicious.
Oh, the Delicious is the one. Oh, Delicious.
This I think is a new one. So this is a special release. Loaded with Citra and brand new Talus hops.
Oh.
So never had those.
Well, Citra we have. But
huge floral aroma with notes of citrus and sweet fruit, plus just the right hint of tartness. Greetings from Beer Paradise, Population U.
Well, us this time.
Yeah. So again, oh my God.
The color, the color is like lager.
I get like distinctly like a guava thing on the nose.
I can't get I got a lot of foam here.
Yeah. It's again kind of a pale West Coast color. It could pass for a Pilsner just by its look.
There's not a lot. I'm trying to figure this out. Like,
It is sort of a weird.
I feel like they wash each other out.
Compared to the aroma, the flavor is surprisingly muted.
Yeah. So like for those, I mean, the two beers we've had before that, the Stone IPA, which was super, super hoppy, and a
Take
Tangerine.
another sip though. Oh, I got that kind of citrusy. Again, I get guava really hard coming in on the kind of the second sip right in the roof of my mouth.
Okay, I get a little bit of sweetness there. I
Yeah,
think my
have to
mouth
say,
is still
there's
battling
like
the other
kind of
IPAs here.
And that is sort of a problem. We really wanted to start with Stone IPA being like their classic before we
But
moved on to their
that
more
thing
modern
is
beers.
just overpowers.
But it does, yeah. You can have like sort of IPA fatigue. So it may be part of the problem is we just, this is only 53 IBU, so it's way lower than the last couple.
What's the IBUs?
53.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely lower.
But it's 7.5%. Does it taste like that?
Oh, dear Lord.
It doesn't.
And that's why I'm not driving home. Or driving at all, really.
That's why I'm not driving home.
Mm.
I will say it has almost like a sweetness. It says sweet fruit. I do get this, like for an IPA, it has a lot of sweet.
Yeah, no,
and I don't know, I can't imagine they got a lot of sweet malt in with how pale it is. Because normally, like a sweet malt, like a caramel, would add a bit of color.
Yeah.
I don't get that. It is some sort of like fruity, almost like a berry, like kind of like a berry sort of flavor.
Maybe.
I wonder, can you look up Talus hops real quick?
Yeah, I'll look them up. You keep talking.
I will keep talking. But yeah, so this is one of the things that I do love about a lot of their beers. As much as I love a good New England IPA, like I can read a book through this glass.
Yes.
This beer is crystal clear. Like I said, if you poured me, the only lager I can think of right now is Budweiser. I'm like, I don't want to, get the Budweiser Miller.
I would say
haters going, but
a
like
straight Coors, like a regular Coors, not a Coors Light, but a Coors.
yeah, but like it looks like one of those. Like it could pass or like a Founder's Solid Gold or something, or Kirin Ichiban if you're into having some beer with your sushi, or like a Sapporo. It could pass for just a crystal clear, beautiful lager, and I'm a huge fan of that in my IPAs.
There's honestly not that much. This must be a
Yeah.
fairly new hop.
This is, I mean, it says brand new, and it is, but it is right. It's a really unique kind of taste. It's a really unique taste, but there's almost a bit of dissonance between what you smell and what you get when you taste it.
So Talus delivers big aromas of pink grapefruit, citrus rinds, dried roses, pine resin, tropical fruits, and sage. And then
I get some of that.
Yep. So it says Talus's impactful citrus, floral, wood, and fruit aromas remain throughout the brewing process.
So yeah, I get
this. Honestly, this like it.
I said for me, weirdly, like I really, really strongly get guava. I like because I've had guava juice before, and it like this tastes so much like that. Which is not really what you described, but that's what I get from this, and it's like this.
Well, I think
deep
there's
sweetness.
the other ingredients in there too, because they said they have like it is supposed to be a very tropical feel to it. So I wonder
all
if
it
other
says
ingredients.
is it's loaded with Citra and brand new Talus hops. It doesn't say if there are other things.
Interesting.
But yeah, like I said, I get sweet because
I do get sweet. I do get a sweet. Yeah.
And I didn't really get floral. Did you get floral on the nose?
No.
Yeah, like I said, I get like distinctly guava, and I get some of the other fruit.
I wonder if that's a tropical fruit.
It is a tropical fruit. It's yeah. I get very tropical here, less citrusy and more tropical.
Yeah,
for me. Okay, so I'm a little bit scared of this one, especially coming last because
we do this every time.
I know.
If you listen to any of our field researchers, we always do the strongest one now.
Fear Movie Lions, or if you were to acronym it, the FML. Double IPA. Can't think of anything else that acronym stands for. So I am super curious about this one. So again, as we described, the double IPA, generally, you're taking an American IPA and you're extraing it. Like even on top of how much we've already extra'd things. So it's higher IBU. usually, and higher. Sorry, I was watching Ryan Point, and higher ABV. So this one comes in at a very respectable 8.5. So this will do it. You know, that's like that's 2 of most beers. So basically, the 6 ounces Ryan poured me is a full beer, but this is a double New England IPA, which is I've never even heard of that before. So it is super cloudy. You can't see anything through it.
Yeah, I saw the reason I gave you a little extra because I saw as I was pouring mine, I saw sediments coming. I'm like, oh, I need to get into the sediments.
You do
the
know
vitamins.
that so 8.5%, but only 60 IBU. Which is really low for a double IPA, but I think it makes sense given that it's a New England.
True.
So a double New England IPA I have never heard of, and I don't really know. Oh my God, I get a lot of smells.
Yes.
It's almost hard to make sense of how much the aroma, like I get a pineapple for sure.
Yes.
But it's muddled. It's mixed with some other stuff. I'm going to take a sip.
I was going to say, you take your sip. I already took mine. This, I would never guess is a double. Like I could not, if you put this with another New England IPA, I could not tell the difference. And
that is
by the
terrifying.
ABV, you would tell the difference after 2 of them.
Yeah, like if someone brought me a 6-pack of this and didn't tell me what the ABV was, they would have to scrape me off the floor with a shovel because I probably crushed the whole 6-pack.
8.5%. Yeah, that's
so
super
easy.
strong. Yeah,
like I don't get because usually you can taste like I have from. If you ever heard of, I think it's North Coast Brewing.
Yes.
They make a beer called Brother Thelonious.
Yes.
Get
yep,
it?
I do know that.
Thelonious monk. It's a Belgian. It's like a monk. It's an abbey beer. It's so good. But it's like that's a like an 8.5 beer too, I think. And you can taste the alcohol, but it's like it's really pleasant. It kind of adds this extra thing. Mm-hmm. This you don't get it at all. It's completely covered up by the hoppy
I'm
punch.
Terrified that it's half gone already, along with everything else.
Yeah, you're drinking this one faster than the last one.
It goes down so smooth.
It really is smooth.
Because you said it's 50 IBUs or 60 IBUs, right?
Yep. So
I would guess 40 again.
So this is Mosaic, and actually, you know, I said there was a weird aroma I couldn't quite place. Mm-hmm. I get the same thing on Mosaic Promise.
Okay.
It is something with the Mosaic. It's kind of, I said dank, but now I'm not so sure because it's not like a pot smell. It's not, but it's not like piney. But it's
is that really the only 2 hops in here too?
Yeah, Laurel and Mosaic. I've heard that I actually kind of want to try a single hop beer with Laurel. I've heard that Laurel is a fantastic, like wonderful hop. And that it's sort of, it's like kind of a hop that does a really good job of bringing other hops together. Never brewed with it, but there's a weird something on the nose that is like, it's not like dank, but it's like dank adjacent. It's like something it's like a funky, but it's almost, you know what? It's like this. Did you get pineapple in this? Because I get really prominent.
I do get like a very, like pineapple, papaya, like that very sweet.
Yeah. Papaya, yeah, like sweeter citrus fruits.
Yeah.
But I get like, to me, it's almost like it's pineapple, but it's like browned, like older, overripe pineapple.
Okay, so
that's the scent that I get.
So I'm on Northern Brewer, so so obviously easy to buy through them. They describe this as a super noble hop with its wonderful wonderful floral and herbal notes, followed by a backdrop of citrus and earthy character, which I guess I can get that, but I feel like the other hop, was it Mosaic? Yeah, the Mosaic kind of bounces that out.
Well, like I said, what I've mostly heard about Laurel is that it's just really versatile. Like you can, because it's a pseudo noble hop, you can use it in a lager and it'll make a really clean lager. But you can also use it in a beer with a bunch of hops, and it's sort of like helps them all. Kind of helps.
It's that one
blend.
friend that brings everyone together,
right? Because I have heard that and you can see that in a lot of stone beers. If we look back up here, the Pearl is I think kind of an almost Britishy hop. Magnum is a bit.
Magnum.
It's so beautiful.
I
Dear
know.
God. But like Magnum's a German hop, so it's not noble. It's like bred to be high bittering, but it imparts noble like flavors where it's like kind of earthy floral. It's not the citrus stuff we expect.
Now, for those,
but I've heard that like those sorts of hops can kind of provide a nice foundation to marry like the fruitier hop flavors from different hops together.
Now, for those who don't know, noble hops are generally one of the original, like generally claimed to be the original hops, and they're grown where they're grown originally from. So Europe most likely.
Europe.
So like spouts, which is hop used for a lot of lagers and lighter beers.
Hallertau, Mittelfrüh.
Those noble hops are grown in those areas where they come from, and they're one of the originals.
Satz, of course. Czech Satz.
Yep.
But a lot of it's like Germany and Czech Republic. But yeah, so they're very different flavor profile from the really citrusy American ones. Yeah, man. This, if you told me you'd made like a Radler with like half beer and half pineapple juice, I'd believe you. This is so
I know, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I'm starting to feel a little bit.
I was going to say, this is one of those beers that's strong enough. I'm feeling every sip.
Oh,
okay. So
next episode's gonna be fun.
Delicious. and they actually say appearance opaque. Yeah. We're recording one more episode after this, and we're going to be kind of buzzed for it. And hey, we're not telling you what it is, and you can try and decide for yourself.
Yeah.
So the one thing, it says opaque, murky gold. I would say this is like, murky is an ugly word.
For New England IPA, that is the name they use.
But I hate it.
I know.
Like I said, I would love a New England IPA to be clear. What I've heard is that it can't be. It's like Brewlosophy. There's my blip. I bring it up every episode.
Hold on, here we go.
They've done some experience. They've tried like fining with gelatin, and that didn't clear the beer up. Like, it's not yeast. I've heard, like some yeast providers like Imperial Yeast talk about the fact that it's not the yeast in the beer. It's these like compounds, proteins and polyphenols and stuff that come out of the hops. No one really knows for sure, but it's like basically something about the way you make a New England IPA, how you load it up with a crap ton of dry hops and stuff and like late hop additions makes it cloudy. It's not like you don't aim for cloudy. Cloudy just happens. Yeah. And, but still, murky is an ugly word, and I hate it. Like, it just I don't want my beer to be murky.
And I was actually intrigued. I just looked this up because I thought hazy and New England were two separate categories. They're not. They're the same.
Yeah.
Hazy
it's
works
just like
better.
People. Yeah. I think it all depends on like, it's all marketing. Like, people are trying to market the same kind of beer.
I feel like maybe not Stone, because they said this is a New England IPA, a double New England IPA, but like some other people be like, I'm not naming my beer a New England IPA because I'm in Montana or something, so I'm gonna call it a hazy IPA.
Sense. Yeah.
So
Bell's calls theirs hazy.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. I think that's maybe what it is.
It's their official Bell's official. If you've ever had it,
I have not.
It's
actually
a hazy IPA. It's good.
Okay,
it's yummy. I would recommend. So let's wrap this up. We're going a little. This was a big one. I blame mostly myself for, but so we've now tried 4 Stone beers. Basically, in this set, one notable thing I'll say is that like we didn't try any of their classics except for Stone IPA.
Yep.
But like Arrogant Bastard, a lot of the ones I talked about were not the ones we tried. But I think that's interesting because we're basically talking about a brewery that, to me, they were sort of on the cutting edge of IPA for a long time. I don't think they are anymore because, or at least I would say like they weren't on the cutting edge of, they did not anticipate the New England craze.
No, I don't think anyone did.
And I would almost say when you look at Stone IPA as like their flagship, it's because the New England craze goes against most of their practices.
Well, go back 10 years, 15 years to when like the IPAs really peaked. Like the regular IPAs, not like all the craziness.
Like a West Coaster, just like a general American IPA.
Honestly, what I think West Coast IPA, I think Stone. That's like the first thing. Like I would agree, yes. It is like the perfect thing to go with it. Like, and that's why I call the brewery Stone IPA. Like I know it's the beer, but like I call it Stone IPA because that's all I know you're right, they brew.
It's funny. So I've been lucky enough to find that Shokovetsa and another one that I love that they don't make anymore, Levitation Ale.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that one.
Technically an amber, but it's like it's hopped way over what an amber should be. And this is one of my my favorite beers like of all time. I'm shocked it didn't make it into our like beers you wish you could brew, because I have cloned it, but the thing is, you can basically make a perfect clone, because when they retired it, they published the recipe.
Oh, really? Okay.
So like when we made that, Bush and I made a clone of that. It's the recipe. Like Stone published it in a magazine, in Paste magazine.
Wow.
Paste, I think. But yeah, like, because they're not making it anymore. So I thought that was super cool. But that's like an amber ale, but it's still super hoppy. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's a pale ale. So Shokaveza is the only one of their beers I've ever even had available to me to buy, except they have a new one, like some sort of weird Metallica collaboration.
Yes,
lager
we were saying that. Yeah.
Night.
Yes.
So,
I saw something. I have not had it, but I've heard that they worked with Metallica.
So they have that, but like, but other than that, yeah, they are just an IPA brewery. For the longest time, when we went there and I saw stuff on the menu that wasn't IPAs, and they were still like 80% IPAs, but like, but I was like, wait, what? Because I thought that it was part of their thing that they only did IPAs.
Exactly, yeah, and like they are. Let's go back to. I think we did something about movies one time, but like. This is the Godfather IPAs for American IPAs for sure.
Oh, definitely for West Coast IPAs, yeah.
And it's
you're
American
right.
IPAs in general.
We did
I would say
this in another
American
episode.
IPAs.
It's like one of the IPAs that new IPAs have to bend down and kiss the ring.
Yes, like
it's like they may not be quite in the image of it, but they still have to pay homage. They have to kiss the ring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think they are the bar. Like if you're making an IPA, you kind of look at Stone and see what they've done. And then go and try to make your own version of it as well.
Yeah. So this is what I'll say. So the first question I kind of want to pose to you is, what makes Stone Brewing special and unique in terms of their IPAs? So I'm going to cheat and start with
go for it.
My response. I think that we can go back to Arrogant Bastard and just say, this is an aggressive beer. Like that. They have like all of them. They're high ABV. The lowest one was 6.7.
Jeez.
And so we did 6.9, 6.7, 7.5, 8.5. That was this variety pack.
And I feel it.
And yeah, I know. and they're high IBU. So like, and like I said, Stone IPA in particular is like completely unapologetic about how high IBU it is.
They don't, yeah.
And I do, like, I've had Arrogant Bastard. It's a beautiful beer. It's technically a strong ale, but it's like, it's in your face malty, it's in your face hoppy, it's in your face bitter, it's in your face everything. It's really good, but it is not easy drinking. It's like, it's a challenging, well-made beer. It's almost like the like Moby Dick or something. If it was a book, it would be a piece of literature. Like it's hard to get through, but it's worth it. You know, like it's complex.
I've had Arrogant Bastard. It's really good, but I honestly put on the same shelf as Dragon's Milk. It's really good.
It's really good to split a 12-ounce bottle with a friend. Yeah.
You don't want that much of it, but it's so good.
It's like you could almost pour it into a snifter and drink it like whiskey, because not because it's so heavy, but because it's just a lot. Yeah. And you want to take it slow and appreciate it.
And going back, I'm going to go back a little bit. Shane, if you're listening, you love Dragon's Milk, go find Arrogant Bastard. You're close to us, so you should be able to find it.
It's not that hard to, but I will say, don't expect the same experience.
No, it's a very different flavor.
It's a different one, but it's another kind of sipper. So the other thing I'll say about Stoned is that they defined a lot of early styles. Like when I want, and I do want to make a West Coast style IPA, I'm going to model it largely after their IPA. So I think they're if you love classic IPAs and not so much the newfangled ones, and I love me a New England IPA, but I don't want all my IPAs to come out like that.
Well, that's a cool thing about IPAs.
I would love to make a beer that is like Stone IPA.
Agreed. No, I agree 100%. Like I would like to do one as well.
So that's sort of my answer. What do you think makes them special?
I can't say anything better than you did. Like they are the iconic IPA, West Coast IPA especially, but American IPA as well. They set the bar, they set the standard. And though they keep up with the trends, with like with New England's and everything else,
I think they've shown the ability to adapt to trends, even if they don't invent them.
But not only just adapt to them, but they reinvent them as well. Like that Tangerine one was really good, and this double New England IPA?
Yeah.
That's their own.
I will
doubling
say,
it is crazy.
I think they may be pushing the envelope there because I have never seen a double New England IPA.
There's probably some out there.
And I think there's something to be said for Tangerine Express too, that it's like I said, to me, it's like, they're like, okay, fine, we'll do this New England thing, but we're still going to make it kind of Stone.
But see,
Because
Tangerine's
I would
great.
say it's,
Go ahead.
it's delicious. I think that a New England IPA or even a non-IPA lover will like it. But I think if you're a person who's like, no, I want my IPAs to taste like IPAs, I do think you can drink that and go, oh, this isn't too different.
Agreed.
It's like sort of dragged back towards that kind of West Coast. Like they took the New England and they dragged it 20% back towards what they really like.
Missouri or something like that?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a Missouri IPA.
But no,
it's a Branson IPA.
I do love Tangerine. That's why I use it in my Impatient Bastard, because the Tangerine has a little bit of sweetness to it compared to orange or to anything else.
Interesting.
And it still gives you that citrusness, but it balances out that that hoppiness, that bitter hoppiness.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Okay. So final question.
Yeah.
What are you going to take from this episode to your own IPA brewing?
I want to make a double New England IPA.
Oh boy.
The double hazy Triforce. Can
Hazy
you imagine
Six
this? The hazy 6-force.
We can turn the Triforce on your logo into like a little like Star of David or something. I don't know.
Or just like invert it so there's two Triforces on top of each other. There you go.
Oh, dude. Like Triforce, but like then like the reflection,
Yes.
like in the water temple.
There it is.
We're nerding out on Zelda.
Yeah,
now,
hold
but-
on. Sorry for you non-Zelda
that,
people,
yeah.
but
I think for me the biggest thing I take back is just God, I want to brew a West Coast IPA.
yes.
I love that style. I love that it's as pale as a lager, and I love the pine mixed with the grapefruit with like classic American hop flavors. I want to make one of those so bad. I've kind of got an idea for it. I don't know when we're going to do it, but that's the biggest thing I take. The other thing I take is to, just don't be afraid to turn up the flavor, turn up the ABV.
Oh no, try it.
Don't be afraid to be aggressive. Like to be aggressive.
I was talking, I'm going to throw this in there. I was talking to a buddy of mine, a friend on Twitter. His name is Patrick, and him and I, he's actually asked me a lot of questions about brewing. And the one thing he said to me recently was,
don't trust him further than your arms reach.
yes. So
Patrick.
So the one thing he actually recently said to me is that he threw out a beer because it didn't turn out right. I'm like, that's perfectly fine. You can throw out a beer. It happens. I've thrown out so many beers. It's not even funny.
Have you? And that sucks.
I've
thrown out 1.5.
1.5. I've thrown out the Kolsch is the main one that happens every single year so far, unfortunately.
Hopefully we're gonna fix it though.
Yes,
and then we're gonna do an episode about it. Dang it.
But like it happens. You throw out a beer and you learn from it, and you try and go a little further with it.
Ultimately, brewing is not that expensive a hobby.
It really isn't. No.
Yeah.
Depending on extract to grain and the tools and
but
everything.
Whatever.
But
still though, it's like I don't know. Like the tools are different, but to brew a batch of beer is like $30.
Cheap and yes. I'd say cheap and yes. I'd say on a
regular.
I mean,
if you're gonna like
50.
use 12 ounces of Citra, then you're gonna be looking at more. But
yeah.
All right, so
I think this was great. I love these beers. I'm glad we did this. This was perfect.
Yeah, I love Stone. I'm glad we got the opportunity to dig in. Like I said, they sort of I'm a like I am with many things, sort of a lover of class. Even though I don't hate the new trends, and I love a lot of good New Englands. I'm kind of a classics person. I love me a good classic IPA sometimes. And I'm glad we got to dig in into one of the breweries that does it best and see how they've sort of adapted to the modern age. Yeah. So if you have any comments about this episode, if you want to pitch in about our first sip, what's the West Coast brewery you want to go to? Do you live on the West Coast? If you live on the West Coast, what Michigan brewery do you want to see?
Oh wow, way to twist that. I was gonna say like what small time breweries, like because they're like for Dragon Mead for us here, like Dragon Mead's a smaller brewery.
I wish people would fly in to go to Dragon Mead because I guarantee they'd be impressed.
Oh, they
it's
would
one
be.
of the best
but
breweries
like,
in the U.S.
Find one of those in like Washington or Nevada or California.
Ooh, that's actually an interesting question. Yeah, especially if you're a listener on the West Coast, we obviously named two fairly well-respected, renowned breweries. Are there small ones on the West Coast that you love? Like I said, I'm sort of shamed. I went to San Diego. I went to a couple of like what they call themselves nano breweries. I can't remember their names. I wish I could.
Yeah.
But if you know those, hit us up. you can hit us, both of us, up on Twitter at Brewthers-In-Law, all one word. If you want to find out more info about the podcast, you can also go to brewthers-in-law.com. And then Ryan, if people want to reach out to you, or I guess indirectly to social media versus me, where can they go to find you on Twitter?
So personally, I'm at Rambo Kuhn on Twitter, and then my brewing stuff is also at Wise Old Owls Brew. And I do have a blog as well, which is hopbrewingblog.com. I do one about once a month. It's not nothing too intense.
I really enjoyed your Christmas toys.
I know. Oh,
Ryan
I got some good toys.
Ryan over Christmas upgraded his brewery so hard.
And we're going to leave that as a tease to go into actually another episode because of what we'll be talking about. So we won't go too far into it.
Well, so
with that
does it. And with the little bit of murky double IPA that's left to you and I.
Cheers.
Cheers.